Salam alaikum, kalispera, salam. I guess I'll come with some observations today about the crisis, about the current situation. I kind of never meant to be as involved as I was. I wanted to help and kind of got thrown into a role. Many of you know, up until recently, I was an Orthodox priest. I believe that in many religions, also within Christianity, there are ideals we often do not live according to. We talk about, even within Europe, we talk about humanism and the value of human life, but I think this crisis showed the lack of those values being lived out, not just from a religious perspective, but also from a humanist perspective. I think it's a great shame for the religions of Europe, the right of Europe, all those who say we're protecting ourselves, we're trying to protect our Christianity, or we're trying to protect our borders, when what they show is a lack of empathy and a lack of love. Essentially, we could say a lack of an understanding of the value of human life, while we often tout these ideals to the outside world. What was shown here on this island by often not the churches, not the governments, not the church, was humans seeing the humanity in others. In 2015, honestly, the great organizations are not here until there was a photo, honestly. They were out doing observation. The UNHCR did show up. Other different organizations showed up. But they showed up to a crisis which many had observed and said was coming, and then showed up after already hundreds and hundreds of volunteers were just out there sharing soup, sharing blankets, giving clothes, putting tarps over refugees. And I'm happy that they did show up. I'm happy that in some way, for a short period of time, there was a lot of support. But again, what I've experienced, and this is an observation, I think we need the support of both of those. There are huge systems. But what some of my heroes are those who came here, who were up day and night, who went outside of their roles once the systems were put into place, to stay up beyond the hours they were paid for, to be there for humanity. This role I've had has been very interesting because I speak Greek. I've lived off and on of Lesbos for the past 16 years now, through work with the Mytilene Study Center, a part of the University of Agder. So I have kind of a local knowledge. And we have the several different perspectives which I think are important. We have the organizational, the NGO structure. We have the refugees, we have the volunteer groups, and then we have the locals. And as was observed earlier today, the locals were often forgotten. And many of the issues that happened in 2015, and I would say some of these issues still exist, but I could see it very clearly. The animosity of the locals was often not towards the refugees. It was towards volunteers and NGOs. I remember walking into Skalas Kamias, which is where I'm generally based. I live in Skamia. You could see, I don't know, it was probably in the end of 2015, 2016. Here, the word NGO is basically a curse word. just so you know. And this little kid, probably about 5 or 6 years old, sees a van drive up, and I'm just walking by, and all these vans with a rental sticker on them, and the kid says, Mikio. NGO. I thought it was children learn this from a young age. Of course, they learn from their parents, but I think NGOs and these organizational structures, there's a reason why a small child has learned this, because the locals fear, or they feel, that they have been completely sidelined by big structures who are more interested in their public relationships and their logos than actually helping, when many of these locals for years, and I've seen refugees on here for many years, they would walk over the mountains from Molivos into Kalunia, and there was another priest named Papa Stratis who gave his nights and days, his heart to these people with no huge logos, and suddenly we have vans and tents and even trash cans that the UNHCR was so very proud that they gave, and I'm happy they gave trash cans. Why put a logo on it? Come on. Sorry, I love Boris very much, but I hate the fucking UNHCR public relations. Okay. You know, the locals felt they had been giving their clothes, their blankets of what they don't have, and Skalis Kamias is a very small place. There are no jobs there. Literally, the majority of people, they're fishermen, they're farmers, they live off their sheep and their olive oil and their vegetables and their fish. That's what they live off of. And then all these people come in there, nice cars, all these Westerners come in there, and they were so welcoming of the refugees. But we didn't respect who they were, and we did not respect that in order to work together and find solutions, we had to work together. They had experiences of the local area. Fishermen had much more knowledge of the waters than rescue boats did. Did anybody go and say, hey, dear fishermen, please show us the coastline, show us? No, everybody showed up and thought they knew what they were doing. And that has hurt the local people, and that has hurt the relationship that one could have to these people out of respect. That respect that we show for these locals is so important. And in the future, I am so much for, I believe there do need to be structures, and I respect the fact that, yes, structures must be put into place. I actually think, believe it or not, very structurally. I forgot my shoes today, but I actually believe very structurally. It's like we need to put things in place, but we need to have the heart. We need to come from a place of giving of ourselves because of humanity like the locals did. Let them be our heroes. And we need to respect them. We need to, again, as was mentioned before, what are we doing from the ground up? As Mario said, their proposal is to go from the ground up. Often it's like UNHCR, take care of this, government take care of this. Yes, they have a role and they have a position, but we also need, I believe that both the governments and, for example, the UNHCR should look at some of the smaller initiatives. I've seen partners at this particular moment. I'm kind of pissed off this week at the UNHCR, but because I've been working at a place called Stage 2, some of the partners left and they got new partners which are supposed to take care of winterization. Winterization means that you keep people warm, there's insulation, there's other questions of hygiene. And still, what we have, what was replaced by the new partners, were space heaters which run with diesel, and the rest of the RHU, the small houses, are called refugee housing units. We've had very cold weeks the past few weeks at night, and we've had an increase in refugees, at least to a certain extent, and some being taken from the south to the north. The RHUs have no heating. This is the third winter. And we've been saying this every single winter, let's make sure we have heating, and up to a certain point, but I think we need to stop being so kind. We need to hold the partners accountable, and if the huge partner that was just put in there, who has a lot of money, cannot put in heaters, then that huge partner needs to leave Stage 2 and put in a small group who doesn't have any money, but they're fucking willing to buy heaters, because it's about humanity, because I wouldn't want my own children. I would want my own children to have heating. So let's hold each other accountable, but let's find out, instead of sometimes, again, we say, oh, it's not a problem, it's on the way. How many times have we heard in coordinations meeting, yes, we're working on winterization, and then we look on the ground and winterization isn't there, and yet smaller groups aren't necessarily allowed to move in because they're not an official partner, and they're given no responsibility and given no recognition. And it's not the recognition is saying, please do this. It's the responsibility that's given. It's not the logos, but it's saying, please do that. And we need to work together, see things on the ground, get observations on the ground, and do stuff, respecting the locals, respecting the dignity of life, working together also with smaller groups so we can have these grassroots things, working together with the big organizations, working together with the government. And we also need respect for that work which is being done on a legal level, so that people who are working to save lives and ensure this are not hindered by what we would say unjust laws or human rights laws which are not being respected. And any time somebody comes up and says, hey, you're not respecting human life, human rights, the dignity of human life, well, those people are making too much noise. Let's put them aside. They're not working together with the big and the powerful. The people who are there on the ground need to be heard and need to be respected because they have a different view, and often it's from an idealistic view rather than the structural view that is trying to protect its own image. The other day, I would say, and I'm just going to mention this in closing, sorry, Apostole. I was actually going to time it, and then I just went off on a rant, so sorry, I've been quite emotional this week, you know, all these people freezing. Again, and some of the workers, I think it is very important, again, the locals need to be, there needs to be, this is what you call local hires, but again, some of the things is that there have been agreements, for example, of hiring locally, local people. Again, local people will be able to find solutions you won't. They speak the language, they know how to work things, and sometimes putting in somebody kind of from the outside doesn't always work. But also, these people need to be educated. They need to be educated about certain things if they're in a certain role where they're supposed to be protecting human rights, protecting their dignity, and don't necessarily know about that. They should know that if the police or the Coast Guard says to them, well, actually, we need you to actually lock everybody inside, the person in the UNHCR, whoever that would be, needs to know that is against human rights to lock women and children. The protection of children is not being taken care of. We had more support at the height of the crisis for the protection of children, but we still have children, over 1,000 children living in Moria. We have all the people who end up staying with a very bad heating system, and nobody is specifically put in place as a partner or from the organizational level to take care of child protection. And they stay there with no parents, no guardians, and only one person. I'm asking for more resources being put in, whether it's from a higher organizational level, or if it's hiring locals, if it's putting in smaller organizations, because this is about the dignity of human rights, protecting their rights, their right to asylum, because we need to show this. It's a practical way of showing love for humanity. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.